Thanks, man. Say what's up.
What's up?
Some quick tips for adding on to your mulching services. If you're going to be spending time mulching to begin with, the time and the effort, you should make the most out of it. And some add-on services that I've found for mulch is cleaning out the mulch beds. Right, there's a lot of weeds in mulch beds, especially if it's a new customer that's contacting you. But even if it's a client that you have, a weekly client, there's still going to be weeds that are going to pop up there. So that might be a service that you offer anyway throughout the year of, maintaining the mulch beds, whether you're pulling the weeds, spraying them with Roundup or whatever. But even in the spring or the fall, when the weeds have the highest concentration, you can still add that on as something that you can do when you're actually putting the mulch down. Before you put the fresh mulch down, you can pull all the weeds, and before you put the fresh mulch down, you can pull all the weeds and clean everything out. But especially for new customers that contact you, usually they haven't done it in a while or haven't had anyone else do it. They want some fresh mulch, but their mulch beds, flower beds are all filled with weeds, and they all need to be pulled out or sprayed or whatever, and then put mulch down. You can also recommend putting down weed suppressant fabric. So for some people that really is beneficial. You just kind of have to feel it out, feel the customer out, ask them when's the last time you've had your mulch beds cleaned out. If it was, if they say it was only a couple of years, or, we always pull the weeds and every time they just keep growing back, we can't keep up with it. Then that's a good sign to suggest putting down some fabric, because that's going to help suppress all the weeds all the seeds that are in the ground still from every year being redeposited, that are going to keep germinating and growing every year. They're going to have to keep pulling them out or spraying them or whatever. So putting down a good weed fabric is going to suppress that, and as long as you explain to them that that's not going to be a weed preventer or eliminator, it's just going to reduce the amount of weeds to fabric. Obviously, the heavier duty fabric you have, that you get, the longer it's going to last, where it's not going to break down as quickly within the mulch and the dirt, and it's also going to be tougher for any weeds that are underneath it in the seed that germinate, that try and come up. The tougher weeds, they won't break through as easily. Some are still going to break through because you have some real tough stick type weeds that are going to bust through, and you just have to handle those on a case by case basis. But when you put the weed fabric down, that's going to help reduce the amount of weeds underneath. But then you got to tell them that the weeds are going to grow in the mulch on top of the fabric. Weeds have very shallow roots, so they don't need to have a lot of soil, or any soil really, to grow, versus grass seed and plants, etc. So you need to make them understand that weeds are still going to grow sometimes, and you're going to need to either pull them, spray them. You can do that. You can offer to do that for them, or they can do it themselves. But it's real easy to pull the weeds out because it's just in the mulch. The roots try and attach to the top of the fabric, so sometimes they're a little tough pulling them out. But it's not like you're digging all the way down in the soil and pulling out this big root system. And then maybe possibly leaving pieces of the roots or seeds in there. So weed fabric, as also labor intensive as it is, and the different mixed opinions that people have about it, customers and professional service providers, I do think it's beneficial under certain circumstances, and it's more money for you to add on, and it's going to be labor intensive. It's going to take more time. So how do you price these things? You price them by the hour. These are all hourly things. You have to find out what your hourly rate is, what it has to be to pay your bills and run your business, pay your employees if you have any, etc. Or what you want your average hourly rate to be. If you don't have any bills, you're young, you're still in school, etc., then pick an average rate. How much money do I want to make for the total of the season? break that down by, 40 hour, how many weeks are in that season, and 40 hours each week, and then it gives you an average hourly rate. So that'll give you a base, and then you can add that to all of your services once you start to get a feel for how long it takes you to do everything. In the beginning, it's just real trial and error. You're going to lose a lot of money in the beginning, and you might also lose some bids because you're overpricing some things because you don't have any idea. But in my opinion, it's better to overprice and get turned down for some. It gives you a better gauge for your pricing than to be underbidding all the time and getting every job and leaving money on the table. So, but this all comes, the first year I learned all of this really quick. Like I changed my prices immediately. After every single job, I would increase my price if I felt that it wasn't right. And everybody was saying yes, and as you're doing it, it takes you a lot longer to actually complete it. Like, you look at it, you look at the mulch beds, you're like, all right, there's a lot of weeds or whatever, maybe this will take me an hour or 2 hours, whatever you guesstimate by however you figure that out in your head, whether you break it down step by step or whatever. Maybe you have someone, a mentor or somebody to help you out and tell you, it should take you this amount of time to do this, whatever. Some things are more clear cut than others, like it should take you an hour by yourself, one person an hour to spread a yard of mulch, or it should take you X amount of time to cut X amount of square foot of grass. Some of those things are a little more clear cut. As far as how long it should take the average person, but other things, there's a lot of gray lines, and you just have to figure it out for yourself. So you're just gonna have to guess in the beginning, and then you just dig in and you time yourself every time you do these services. How long did it take me to pull all these weeds in this mulch bed? How long did it take me to put down this weed fabric, and so on. Obviously, when you're using materials like weed fabric, you want to mark it up, so that you get something out of that fabric, because you have to go and buy that fabric. So that's time and money to go and buy that fabric. You're not just, it's not like they're giving you the fabric. Here you go. You're actually taking your time and money to buy the fabric. So you should get something back for that. So you want to mark that up a little bit, and then you obviously then add on your hourly rate, and that's how you get your average price for what you're going to estimate or bid, for this particular job. And like I said, you time yourself, how long is it going to take, and then you fine tune it. Wow, it took me 2 hours instead of an hour. Now you have a better gauge if you want to measure stuff, and things like that, to have some sort of a systematic approach to certain services. Then you can do that. Whatever you do, that's how you do. These are just some of my suggestions and tips that I've done in the past, and also seen others do. But so weed fabric and pulling weeds, those are some two key add-ons that you can add on to spreading mulch. Sometimes no one really needs that because they've maintained it themselves, or you've maintained it all year long. So all you really have to do is put down some fresh mulch. But in that case, at the very minimum, what you could and should add on is redefining the mulch bed edge. Now again, if you have been keeping it clean with your trimmer every week when you're there, then it's not that big of a deal. But if you are getting a new customer, and again, they need everything, weeds pulled, and they need they want the fabric down, and then their edges are all messed up, then you're going to have to get a bed redefiner. Echo and Stihl both make stick bed redefiners. It's like an edger but with a bigger, wider blade. They both are slightly different versions of that, have their own type of blade, and they still work. Both work very well. I've used the Stihl, I haven't used the Echo, but I've seen both in action from some of the landscapers around town, and they both seem to do a good job. So that's good, just not under muddy conditions because it gets all clogged up. But if it's really bad, or somebody wants you to actually like extend a mulch bed or reshape a mulch bed, it's better to just get the old-fashioned bed definer, not redefiner, the actual bed edgers, like Little Wonder and some of the other brands out there. Make the machines that you actually, it's a big machine, a big like pull behind machine that you, with the giant blades that spin, and you just pull it along little by little. It's got like 4 wheels and you just pull it. It's not easy, but it definitely cuts. It's basically digging a trench, and it cuts a nice defined edge along whatever your path, whether you spray paint a path in the grass, a shape for them, or the customer does it for you, or whatever it is. That's excuse me, you can go about that way. Now that service, whether you're redefining the edge or you're creating an edge, you want to charge per linear foot. So you want to take a measuring wheel, and you want to walk along all the edges, and you just keep going with the wheel along every single mulch bed edge that you have to do, and you get your total. You add all that up, you get your total, how many linear feet you have, and that's how you price. Again, you need to go based on your hourly rate and how long you think it'll take you to edge X amount of linear feet. And then you go from there, and you're going to be off the first time because you're not going to know unless somebody tells you, hey, we charge, you know, this amount per linear foot. You know, it's not a lot, because if you figure it's going to be hundreds of feet, so you know, you're not going to charge $40 per linear feet, because that's ridiculous. You're not going to charge $10 per linear feet, because that's ridiculous. So you know, you have to kind of figure that out. But again, it doesn't take that long to edge a couple hundred linear feet. So when you do it a couple of times, you know, and you just kind of guess a price, you know, like, or maybe not even, you know, maybe just, if you don't have one of those pieces of equipment and you need to rent it from a renter, then maybe you just add on the price of the rental and just mark that price up a little bit so that you give yourself a little money for it, and then almost kind of do it for free in a sense, you know, like do it for yourself or a friend or a neighbor or a family member or a customer, and just do it and see how long it took you to do 355 linear feet or something. And now you have something to go by. Now you can start breaking it down. You can divide that by your hourly rate and then start figuring out how much per linear foot you need to charge so you can make a profit every time. So that's a good add-on again for doing mulch. So hope these tips helped. Those three things: redefining mulch beds, putting down weed fabric, weed suppressant fabric, and cleaning the weeds, pulling the weeds out or spraying the weeds dead, and then putting the mulch on top or putting the fabric on top of that. Those are some three key add-ons that I've done over the past several years. It is labor intensive, but you know, you might as well get more for your money while you're already there. So have fun spreading your mulch. See you guys later.